deep state conspiracy that you organized?
No.
In October of 2016, Speaker Paul Ryan said, "I am not going to defend Donald Trump, not now, not in the future." Was this fleeting outburst of moral courage part of a deep state conspiracy that you organized?
No.
Former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson called Donald Trump a moron. Former EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt said he's an empty vessel when it comes to the Constitution. Steve Bannon said he's like an 11-year-old child. General H.R. McMaster referred to Donald Trump reportedly as a dope and an idiot with the intelligence of a kindergartner. Karl Rove called him a complete idiot. Representative Duncan Hunter said he's an a-hole, but he's our a-hole. And the director of the National Economic Council, Gary Cohn, reportedly sent out an email describing Trump as an idiot surrounded by clowns. Were all of these vituperative, negative characterizations of Donald Trump part of a deep state GOP conspiracy engineered by you and your friends?
No.
Were any of these statements part of a conspiracy you organized?
No.
Now, although this conspiracy does appear to be overwhelmingly Republican, if it exists, balance compels me to ask you about my hero, Bruce Springsteen. Unlike the others who are all Republicans, Springsteen's a Democrat, and he said, "The Republic is under siege by a moron." Did you tell him to say that?
No.
Was it part of a deep state conspiracy to criticize the president?
No.
Mr. Strzok, this hearing has been a circus and a kangaroo court run in banana Republican fashion. And I believe that some of my colleagues have disgraced themselves today in their attack on the FBI and the justice system of America. How can we recover from the hole that has been dug here today?
Sir, America is strong. I have, however bad I think I've seen it in my life, I am confident that the institutions, the American people, will endure and be great. I have full faith in the United States, all the men and women, and even in times of trial and tribulation, I have every confidence that we will emerge as great as we've ever been. And that
Well, I'm with you, and thank you for your service to America.
Yes, sir.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Gates, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've said repeatedly today that you were not biased, but Bob Mueller kicked you off his team as a consequence of your bias, didn't he?
Sir, I wouldn't agree with that characterization. I think I answered earlier. My understanding was that, and again, there were no words spoken about this, but it was the potential appearance that he wanted to avoid as much as anything else.
So did Bob Mueller say, "I'm not firing you from this team from your bias, I'm getting rid of you"? So what is your basis for the belief that it's the appearance of your bias rather than your actual bias that resulted in Mueller removing you?
Because I think his experience both with me, my work, and the reputation of others about me and my work, that he knows that I am an individual who follows the facts where they lay.
So your testimony today that you were removed not for bias but for the appearance of bias is based on your perception of Robert Mueller's perception of you?
No, sir. I'm saying what I would think the logical case. If you want to know what his reasons were, you'd need to ask him.
Let me ask it simply, Mr. Strzok. Did Robert Mueller ever ask you if you were biased against Donald Trump?
He did not.
So he didn't ask you when he hired you?
No, that question is not typically a question that gets asked during hiring meetings in the U.S. government, to my experience.
One would seemingly think that if you were hiring someone to investigate something, you might ask. But certainly then, when you were removed, was it clear to you that Mr. Mueller was aware of these incendiary text messages?
Yes.
So he knew of the text messages, but never asked you whether you were biased or not?
That's correct.
Your girlfriend texted you on the 8th of August, "Trump's not ever going to be president, right? Right?" Do you recall your reply?
I do recall my reply, and if I hadn't, it's been refreshing my recollection no less than 4 or 5 times today, sir. But yes, I do recall my reply.
And what was it?
I'm sure you have it. I don't want to misstate it, but essentially, no, he's not. We'll stop it.
Did Bob Mueller ever ask you about that text message?
He did not.
About a week later, on August 15th, you sent a text message regarding a meeting in Andy McCabe's office. Is that right?
I don't know the date. I do believe I know the text message that you're going to.
Did Bob Mueller ever ask you what happened in the meeting in Andrew McCabe's office?
There are many meetings that I attended in, not many, but several meetings.
Did Bob Mueller ask you about any of them?
He did not.
Huh. Did Bob Mueller ask you what you meant by an insurance policy?
Director Mueller did not.
On the 26th of July, this is contemporaneous with the opening of the Trump-Russia investigation, your girlfriend texts you, "Clinton just has to win now." And you reply a few days later, "And damn, this feels momentous because this matters." The other one did too, but that was to ensure we didn't F something up. "This matters because this matters." So super glad to be on this voyage with you. Did Bob Mueller ask you why this matters?
If you're asking why it mattered, it was a comparison between a case about...
I've seen you do this where you answer questions that are not asked, but that is not what I'm asking you. I want to know if Bob Mueller asked you about this text message.
Director Mueller did not ask me about any text message, Congressman.
Well, gosh, just days after Mueller is appointed, in two text messages, one on the 19th of May and one on the 22nd of May, you reference impeachment. Did Bob Mueller ask you why you were referencing impeachment?
Congressman, as I just stated, Director Mueller did not ask me about any text message.
Well, I find that very interesting, that Bob Mueller has to remove you as a consequence of bias. Now, you don't say it's bias. You say that based on your perception of Bob Mueller's perception of you, it couldn't possibly be your bias. It has to be the appearance of bias. But when we get into actually the manifestation of that bias through your words, Bob Mueller doesn't ask you about a single one of them. And so then I look at other people that Bob Mueller picked on his team, people like Lisa Page. I'm very curious to know whether or not he asked her about any of her incendiary text messages. But throughout the team, you've got people working for Bob Mueller who have active connections to Hillary Clinton. You know, Greg Anders donated to the Clinton campaign. Kyle Freeney donated to the Clinton campaign. Andrew Goldstein donated to the Clinton campaign. Elizabeth Prigolar donated to the Clinton campaign. James Quarles donated to the Clinton campaign. Jeannie Rhee represented Ben Rhodes during the Benghazi investigation. She represented the Clinton Foundation against Freedom of Information Act requests. Andrew Weissman, the number 2 for Mueller, attended Hillary Clinton's election night party. Aaron Zellaby represented Justin Cooper, who was the person who set up Hillary Clinton's private email server. And then there's you and Miss Page. And it's just really interesting to me that when you were so damaging to the investigation that you had to go, that Bob Mueller, the person who brought in all these people that had connections to the Hillary Clinton campaign, did not ask you about a single text message. And I tend to believe, Mr. Chairman, that it's because he did not want to know the answer and that there was bias and that your perception of Bob Mueller's perception of you is totally unreliable, and I yield back.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Demings, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Strzok, let me just clear this up right now. I am not angry, and I'm not desperate, and I'm not afraid of the truth, but I am in pursuit of it. First of all, I want to thank you for your service to our country through the Federal Bureau of Investigations and for your service to our country through the United States Army. Mr. Chairman, each of us as members of Congress took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. My oath as a member of Congress was not the first oath that I took, it was the third oath, for I served as a law enforcement officer for 27 years. And like the employees of the Federal Bureau of Investigations and the Department of Justice, I swore to protect this country and to remember, uphold the rule of law. We have now wasted countless hours of our very limited and precious time chasing these phantoms, wasting both the witnesses' time and our own. The Inspector General's report must have been a very big disappointment to the President and to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. Let me say this, law enforcement officers, and you said it earlier, Mr. Strzok, not only do they have political opinions, but they are encouraged to have them. And as a chief of police, I encourage them to have them and express them. Perhaps, but their expression never interfere with their ability to conduct their job. Perhaps Congress could learn something from members of the law enforcement community, because my colleagues on the other side of the aisle allow political bias to influence their